everybody, it's Matt Robinson. Welcome to another edition of the Writer's Block. A few months ago, I had an author on the show who not only is an author, but was also a lawyer at the Department of Transportation and a great husband and father who was bringing his family all over the world and who had started a series of children's books related to those travels. In our conversation since airing, I found out that he also has started his own publishing company, but more about that later. Right now, I just want to welcome back my fellow BU alumnus and friend in the book biz, Tom Lehrich. Welcome back to the show, Tom.
Thank you, Matt.
So last time you were here, you were telling me about Red Barn Publishing, which is your publishing imprint. How and why, as an author, did you think it was important to start your own publishing company?
Well, when I started to think about publishing our series, which I had been writing for almost a decade, I realized that writing the book, getting the book illustrated, was actually the easiest part. And I was talking with fellow authors, and I found that trying to get published, getting the story out, marketing the book was the most difficult part for authors. And so what we decided to do with Red Barn Publishing was take a record label approach where we would put the best books out and they would in many ways sell themselves, but we would lower the barriers for new authors, for younger authors, and to try to also focus on an area where really you can make the biggest impact on readership, and that is children's books, young, adult, and youth readers. And it's really been fantastic. We also just recently, realizing that authors need illustration and art services, we started a group within Red Barn Publishing that provides creative services, and it's been really a lot of fun. We also have a whole line of fall books coming out. We just put out a book that's called The Mystery of the Blue Pearl, which is by an author in the Northwest, and it is doing amazing. And we have coming out in October a special book, which we'll be talking about later, called Pete's Beat, which is really a book about music and instruments, and we'll talk a little bit about that later.
Okay. So, so an author could really just come to you with just their manuscript, and you can find them an illustrator and really help them put all the other pieces together.
That's right. One of the ways that the model works best is we work with authors that really have put almost all of it together, and they need the last 5 to 10% of getting it published, getting it printed, putting it out through distribution. We work with the largest 3 distributors. There's essentially 3 book distributors in the US. And so what we try to do is, once the easiest part is done, actually writing the book, we help with the rest.
I see. So your book series that you started, your main characters are Backpacker Billy and his dog Shave. Where did the original inspiration come from, and what are some of the adventures that they've been on together?
Absolutely. Well, one of the stories that we're going to be talking about today is our newest story about the Rocky Mountains. And the genesis of that story was, I was skiing with my younger brother in a snowstorm in Vail, Colorado, and it was snowing so unbelievably hard. And we were up in Vail Mountain, and he lost his ski. And we were digging and digging, Matt, looking for his ski. We gave up and skied down the mountain. But I said to my brother, let's go back. I think I know where the ski is. We went back the next day, true story. We dug, and we found the ski. And so I had written a story, and it was called The Lost Ski. The Rocky Mountain book is an extension of that story. We then added a whole bunch of wonderful animals that are indigenous to the Rocky Mountains. So we have Sparks the moose, Jer, the Colorado black bear, Mayim the marmot, which lives in the cliffs. We also have Ben, the bighorn sheep. And also the thing about our Rocky Mountain book is it's our first 2-season book. So Backpacker Billy and Shave, they are in the Rocky Mountains in the winter, and they're skiing. It's a skiing adventure. And then we have them in the summer in Colorado. And so it's our first 2-season book. It's really a wonderful story. The other thing that the readers learn about is how the alpine habitat is very unique, and we talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the stories are wonderfully engaging, and I've shared them with a lot of my friends, but the educational element really makes them special and different. They're really intelligent, and even, I've been to that part of the world, and I learned a lot too. So, are all the books based on family trips and family stories? Like, how do you choose where they're gonna explore next?
We do a lot of research, and many of them are based on hikes or trips or treks that I've done. So, for example, we have a new book that's going to be coming out in the late spring about whales, and I've been doing a lot of research. I actually was just recently in New England taking photos, went on a whale watching trip, saw a pod of humpback whales. And so we have a Boston story that's coming out that's going to be about Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Boston, and it's going to be focusing on the whales that are in this area. And we really did a lot of research. So they're based on trips that we do. This is based on some of the whale watching trips that we've done.
Now, you're mostly in DC, but you come up this way for BU events and other things. I understood you're trying to start a BU authors community while you're here. How's that coming along?
That's right. So, well, BU has a great group called BU Connect, and they have different groups, and we're trying to add something that deals with authors and illustrators. We're, I would say, probably about 10% in, but we're going to get the group together. And it will be something that I'm hoping will be part of the actual BU Connect.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'd love to have more BU people on the show here. I'm a big, third generation Terrier, big supporter. So
right.
You seem to really leave a positive imprint wherever you go. It's really inspirational. Where did Billy and Shave come from? Is it like based on a childhood pet and yourself, or is it a friend, or just the ideas that came to you? How did the characters come to be?
So Backpacker Billy is the adventurer and the independent explorer in every child. And when we were coming up with the names of the characters, we wanted the dog to be a name that was something that would stand out. And Shave is where we came up. As a matter of fact, after I'd written the series, we had a golden retriever, and we named the dog Shave. And a lot of people thought we named the series after Shave, but the series came before our dog.
I see.
And so we had a golden retriever, and Shave in the book looks exactly like our golden retriever. It just happened to
be that way.
It happened to be that way.
Life imitates art.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is that we have coming out in October our newest story. It's going to be released in about 3 weeks, and it's about the spotted owl in Utah. And what's really special about this story, Matt, is it is the first story that I wrote. And it was about the spotted owl in the old growth forest, and it takes place in Zion National Park. And it was based on a hike that I did, but it was the first story that I wrote in the series. Incredibly primitive. It's our shortest story. It's going to be only one animal character, which we typically have many, and it's our shortest book, and it's also going to be tailored to slightly younger readers. And we're really excited about it. And I also wanted to thank our friends at Zion National Park who have agreed to pick up the book at their National Park bookstore.
Oh wow!
So
At the visitor center.
It's going to be really exciting.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Why, if it was the first story, did you wait until now to publish?
Well, so I've written 20 books, and as you know, we've published 5. And what we've been doing is we've been having reading teachers read our manuscripts, and based on that, we've been ranking like what the reaction is. And so we've been going out with where some of the books had the most excitement. So that's why we did the Hawaiian Lion first. The Spotted Owl book was the shortest book, and we were really thinking about doing it like later once the series was built a little bit.
Okay, but
Yeah.
to sort of reach down to slightly younger readers,
Yeah.
and have it be used as a reading tool,
Right.
as a literacy tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many benefits to the books.
It's a really cute story, and it also takes place. The readers learn that in Zion National Park, there's actual old growth forests within the canyons, and that's where this species of the Mexican spotted owl lives, and we feature that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was, you asked a little bit about the components of the series. Every one of our books, we have a nature note in the front where we talk about the animals that the readers are going to see, or maybe the habitat, and then at the end of the book, we say where we're going to be next. So in the Colorado book, which we're talking about today, at the end it says, "We'll see you in Utah." And we talk about the next book that the readers will be able to enjoy.
So you have to have your production calendar pretty much established. Yeah. To that point, how have you chosen other authors? How do you know who's going to work well in the Red Barn model?
So you're a musician. We're really taking a vintage approach, like a record label. And if you think about musicians, when they put a record out or they put music out, one of the reasons that it does well is because the song or the record is amazing. And then the record label is a vehicle. We look at Red Barn as the same way. We're a vehicle to get the books out, and we're looking for the absolute best stories within our reading age, which is really our sweet spot, is between 4 and 11 years old, and we look for that.
Okay. How can people find out more about Red Barn and about your books?
Well, Red Barn Publishing is a publishing company out of Oregon, and it's redbarnpublish.com, and we have a really absolutely wonderful website.
and some really amazing books. So yeah, just like I said, there's so much to learn, whether it's literacy or about places that, even if you've been to places, you know, I visited a number of the places in the books, and I always learn something new, and the characters are really, you know, endearing and attractive, and that, you know, the animals involved, there's environmentalism, there's so much great going on, and I wish you luck with this book, and I can't wait to see what you say.
Hello, I'm Tom Lehrich, and I'm thrilled to be the guest host for the Writer's Block today. I'm here to talk with Matt Robinson about his new book coming out in October, Pete's Beat. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here.
So Pete's Beat's coming out in October.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit, how did you get the idea for this story? It's a story about musical discovery.
Well, it's in very many ways, it's autobiographical. In fact, when I talk about the process that it took to publishing, I had one publisher who said, "Can you make the main character female?" And I said somewhat jokingly, "Well, it'll take some surgery, but I could look into it." Because it's basically my story. I was kind of an awkward kid, a little different. My musical tastes were always very different than my peers. I was much more into older music, and I kind of grew up in the great American songbook tradition, like Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and Ella Fitzgerald and that type. But I had always loved music. It's always been a part of my life, just on an amateur level. And one of my earliest jobs was I started my writing career as a music critic. I reviewed albums and live shows for the Boston Globe, and then I wrote for Billboard magazine for a while. And while doing that, I got sort of involved with the improvisational music scene, like the jam band scene, like Fish and the Grateful Dead and things like that, and more on the Boston, the local level. But a lot of the bands that I would go to write about would invite the audience to come up on stage for the last song and play along, and it was just so much fun. It was like a drum circle every night. So I went to the Guitar Center store in Boston near Fenway Park, and I asked to be introduced to some of the drums, and or at least have someone unlock the cases so I could try things out. And apparently I must have been put in touch with the percussion buyer or manager, because not only was I encouraged to play everything, but the person who was with me, and unfortunately I've forgotten their name, introduced me like, this is the djembe, it's from Africa, it's usually hand carved and passed down through families. This is the cymbal, it's from Turkey, and the Zildjian company, which is now based in Massachusetts, is actually one of the oldest companies in the world. It's like the 10th generation of the family. And I just learned so much about not only the instruments, but their provenance and the culture and how they're used, and mainly the fact that what we consider the Western drum kit is not Western at all. It's really an amalgam of every other nation and every other culture. And that idea always stuck with me. So Pete's Beat is really that story of a boy who is having trouble kind of finding his way in the world, and he meets this drum circle guru who introduces him to these instruments from all over the world, and then he's able to find his groove, as it were, and discover what he's really meant to do and what makes him feel comfortable and confident.
So a little bit of a fun question. I had really the privilege to read an advanced copy of Pete's Beat.
Yes, you did.
And I noticed there's a lot about instruments from all over the world, as you were just talking about. Could you share with us, what is your favorite instrument or two from the book, and why?
Well, the original title was Bumpy the Drum, because the drum that I ended up getting is a nashiko, which is a conical drum from Africa. And the one that I chose it because it had apparently been dropped and had a dent in it. And I just kind of, it spoke to me, like, the kind of the maverick, the outlier, the one that needs a little special attention. It spoke to me in that way. I had kind of an emotional connection to it, because that's the character I was. I was Pete. So that, I think having that, the African hand drums were probably my favorite. But I learned so much in addition to what I had been introduced to at the store, I learned so much in doing the research for this book, not only about the instruments, but also about what it takes to write a book and to have it published. And I'm very fortunate to have found a great publishing company called Red Barn Publishing, which you may know. And I just can't tell you, I mean, this book has literally been 20 years in gestation, and I'm just so excited that any day now it's gonna be real.
Part of the excitement of this story is for authors and readers to learn a little bit about how you put this together, and also motivate authors and young writers to publish their books. So my question goes to, after you wrote the story, how did you find your illustrator? Just tell us a little bit about that process for you. What did you learn after working with your illustrator?
Well, my illustrator, it's an interesting story, because as a journalist, I always had to protect my ideas. There were a lot of cases where an editor or publisher, I would pitch them a story, and they would ask me a lot of questions about who I would interview and what my angle would be, and then they would tell me they weren't interested, but then basically write a similar story themselves. So for many years, I was very reticent to share any of my book ideas, because I didn't want someone else who might already have an agent or a publisher running away with it. But fortunately, while I was teaching writing at Boston Public Schools, I met a science teacher named Scott Hubeni, who is also a great illustrator. He has a book, he's been a guest on the Writer's Block. He has a book called 180 Days, DAYZ, which is basically a comic book about the teacher's life. And So he and I kind of made a bond, and we were sort of each other's accountability partners. We would check in with each other. Have you called another agent? How's that edit coming? And just kind of kept each other on the track, because writing is challenging and can be kind of isolating. And so when what is now Pete's Beat first came to mind, I asked him, could you just draw me a pencil sketch cover, just so I have something to show people that makes it look real? And he did, and it was so in keeping with what I had in mind that, you know, after these many years, he was my first call. When the publisher called and said, we'd like to move forward with your book, he was my first call, and I said, how would you like to illustrate the whole thing? And a couple days later, he sent me this image of himself as a photograph with Pete, as if they were in the same room. And I just absolutely fell in love. He just so got it. And it's just great to be working with a friend and a colleague who we've just made such a bond, both as teachers and as fellow authors. So I'm really just so gratifying to be allowed to work with him. Because I know that Red Barn has a lot of great other illustrators in their system. And so to be allowed to work with someone who I brought in was really great.
The illustrations and drawings are really vibrant. So last question, but before we wrap up, and we've done a little bit of musical chairs, and it's been a fun discussion. What's next for Pete in Pete's Beat? Are we going to see Pete as a character in another story or in some other type of media?
Well, I'd actually, when Pete as a children's book really seemed to be kind of petering out, no pun intended, or maybe as an idea, I actually made more of like an older reader version, which is much more about the cultures that led to all these musical traditions. So I have that kind of on hold, and a number of people have suggested to me that once Pete is out and, you know, reaching people, that I do other books about the other three musical families. So, you know, this took a lot of research and a lot of work. It was a really, there was a lot, you know, because it is my story, but I really do see some possibilities there. So I think that even if Pete the character is not really coming back right away, that there are other ideas that it spawned, and you know, and that I really always wanted to be an author. I have my book about the Ivy League that's been out for about 6 years now. That's still moving along, but I'm really hoping that, you know, that working with Red Barn and with Scott and the amazing team that we've assembled, that this could really be something, and, you know, maybe lead me to whatever my next phase of my writing and production career. So, you know, we'll see. It'll be out any day now, and I'm just really thrilled to have it coming together, and very grateful.
Well, thank you, Matt. And I wanted to thank Matt for joining us. We learned about Pete's Beat. We did a little bit of musical chairs. We started learning about the new book from the series, The Adventures of Backpacker Billy in the Rocky Mountains. And then we did musical chairs about a musical book about discovery. Want to thank the Needham channel, the great production team, and thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Matt, and thank you to our audience.